Hi everyone, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra here on John's Briefs with Tim Forshee from Forshee Law. Make sure you go check him out. His programs are pretty cool. At the very least, you should have an NFA trust that is done by Forshee Law. I do, right?
You do, yeah.
Trust for that?
Easy too. You didn't have like 67 relatives on there like some people do. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So we recently had a video that was kind of a goat rope of two teenagers fighting and dad like egging them on, and then when his daughter started getting whooped, he walks up to separate him with a gun in his hand and then pointed it at the kid that was whooping his little girl's butt. There's just enough stupid there to go around. But today I want to talk about the defensive display of a firearm versus brandishing and where that line is. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, you can attend our monthly Active Self-Protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. So if you haven't watched that video, it's full of stupid. It's as stupid as stupid gets.
Brimming with stupid.
It is, yes. It's just overflowing. It's a cornucopia of stupid. It's a plethora, right? Oh, that's a dated pop culture reference. Would you say there's a plethora of stupid? Anyways, anybody get the reference? Let me know in the comments.
A Confederacy of Stupid. Right.
Yes. So you have just overflowing amounts. And we see this here in Arizona get charged. Where I see people get charged all the time here is in road rage incidents.
Yeah.
Where you see people, picking guns out because they're arguing with somebody in the car. So we also have a very strong defensive display statute here, and some states have strong ones. I really think ours is probably one of the stronger display statutes in the union. I haven't seen it hit the appellate courts yet, but we'll see how that goes. I've seen it in criminal. I've seen it in trial courts, but of course you don't learn nothing from trial courts. But now, what's the difference between getting charged with brandishing a firearm and a defensive display of a firearm?
Well, brandishing is a term that we see across the country. We don't have a crime called brandishing in Arizona.
Nope.
They used to in Texas.
We call that crime aggravated assault.
Yeah, it's called aggravated assault here, which is significantly more severe. Basically, the statute we have in Arizona is ARS 13341. That's called defensive display of a firearm. And essentially what it says is you're not yet in fear for your life, but you're basically in fear for becoming in fear for your life. So it's almost like I asked the wrong guy's girlfriend to dance and he's coming at me and I'm about to get my butt whooped. And I'm fat and 60 and I don't want to get my butt whooped today. So in theory, I can let that person know, hey man, back off. I've got a gun, don't make me use it. Okay? Normally that would be threatening or intimidating or even assault. But we have a statute that says that's allowed. That's called defensive display of a firearm. It even says that I can pull my jacket back and make some really macho Clint Eastwood statement like, oh really?
Grit.
Yeah, you want to mess with me and Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson? Yeah. And that kind of guy's going to have a Punisher grip on his gun. You just know it, right?
You know it.
What I find, I think I've kept track, I think I've had this come up 7 times in my practice.
Really?
And 6 of the times that it came up, I was representing somebody that fancied themselves a bit of a bad guy, fancied themselves a bit of a
outlaw.
Well, yeah, or maybe even a Rambo. They watched all the videos and they had the tats that were, the Confederate flag, the kind of people that you probably wouldn't want to have dinner with, right?
Yeah.
And they basically use this as a sword instead of a shield. You and I are both very fond of that analogy.
Yeah.
They use this as a sword instead of a shield, and they basically go out and try to be a badass. And oh really? Oh, you want to mess with me? I'll shoot you. That kind of stuff. And they thought that that was appropriate because this new statute that appeared in Arizona about, I believe, 11 years ago now, allowed them to do so. And what I found is that those people wind up getting charged with aggravated assault. And why do they get charged with aggravated assault? The statute says it's okay. Well, the statute does say that it might be okay, but there's 6 people with their video phones who already called the police that say different. And so that's the facts that the cops and the prosecutor and the judge and the jury are going to have to deal with. So I'm not a big fan of defensive display because of the way people tend to view it. The last time that I had to use it, my client had never heard of it, and I was able to assert it, and I got all the charges dropped. So it can be a wonderful shield, but it turns out it's a pretty bad sword. So, and again, guys, when we talk about defensive display of a firearm, when we talk about the stand your ground laws, et cetera, when we talk about the castle doctrine, it's not a matter of when can you shoot someone.
There it is, the can.
It's a matter of when can you not avoid having to shoot someone. And that's what people don't get. Well, if this guy does this and this, can I shoot him? That is not the question I want to hear. I want to hear, this guy's doing this, I thought of this, this, and this to avoid having to shoot him. Can you think of anything I haven't thought of yet before I shoot him? That's the only way you can phrase this thing. So when people say, well, if somebody breaks in my house, I can shoot him. Is it a hunting license? I mean, is that do you want to mount the guy over your fireplace? Can you afford not to shoot him? That's the question you should be asking. And I think that goes for defensive display as well. If you're in fear for your life, shoot him. If you're not in fear for your life, why are we having this conversation?
Well, and I can think of circumstances where I might want to to draw and command. Okay, so
Sure.
that we would consider a defensive display. A guy is standing at one end of my car, I'm at the other, and he's stupid enough to show me the knife that he's, wants my wallet, and I go, nope. Hey, buddy, drop that knife.
See,
right
I would do the same, but I don't think I would call that defensive display of a firearm. I mean, it's what you're doing, but that statute's not really good. That's self-defense.
So I'm
So
saying
that's going to be 405 that's going to cover that, not 431.
So again, though, if I'm showing it to him, and again, I'm not gun pointed up at him, and I'm down at a low ready position, and I go, hey, back off, buddy, and then, all right, now I've displayed to him that I have the means and opportunity to do him deadly harm.
Right.
If he continues on, well, then I'll do so. Now I'm okay. If instead, wait a minute, we're having an argument, and all of a sudden I go, oh yeah, you want to fight me? I've got a gun. Well, now I'm running the risk of putting him at fear that I'm going to do death or great bodily harm.
Chicken or the egg. That comes up all the time, yeah.
And so now I'm not, again, using it as a shield, I'm using it as a sword.
And in Arizona, we also have a statute that says if you start the fight, you lose the right to claim self-defense. And then there's the issue of, well, what started the fight? When I called you a dirty, rotten so-and-so, did that start the fight? Or when you pushed me for calling you a dirty, rotten so-and-so, did that start the fight? And I'm sorry to tell you, it's a jury question.
Right.
So best rule of thumb is you don't go around starting fights. So.
Now, back to the original here, what we had there is we didn't have a defensive encounter.
No.
We had mutual combat.
Yeah.
We had a fist fight. And fist fights do happen. I think, again, don't defend your ego, friends. Your ego is not your amigo. And I get it, as a teenager, I got in fist fights, too many. I worked in construction. That's how it worked sometimes. Worked for my grandpa. Sometimes you just got to throw hands. And I'm not proud of those times. Okay, I didn't do a lot of that. I saw a lot of it. I didn't do a lot of it, a little. And so, if I could go back and tell 14-year-old John, hey, buddy, use your words. Adults use words. We don't use hands.
If only we could do that.
If only we could. And I don't know that 14-year-old John would have listened. but the point is that, listen, we don't use a firearm to intimidate others, right? We use a firearm as a tool of last resort to stop deadly threats. And even pepper spray. I mean, we've got one that's recently on the channel now of a guy that's terrible issue of 2022, that middle of 2022, and he's holding somebody at pepper spray because he said, you're unmasked and you're threatening my life at a Costco. And you're like, come on, man, like, get away from there. So I'm threatening you with this chemical agent that I'm gonna spray you if you don't back away from me unreasonably. So when you do that, now you're brandishing a defensive tool, and you're gonna end up, I think, with the OC spray, probably convicted of assault there.
Right.
And with a firearm, aggravated assault. And we see this, we recently had this a couple of years ago. We've talked about it on the channel before. I did a seminar here in the Valley about, legal and moral use of force. And the guy, just this guy that was attending, he's like, so I had this road rage incident, and this guy, I cut him off, and he was pissed off. And then he, we stopped at the light, and he jumped out of the car, and I took my .45 out of the center console, and I stuck it on the dash, and then he got back in his car. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, so sir, what you just did was admit aggravated assault to this whole room of people. He's like, well, no, it wasn't. And Tim stands up. Sir, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I can't tell you how many mortgage payments I have paid because of men like you.
Exactly. People do this all the time. They'll take the gun out of the glove box and very demonstrably set it up on top of the dash of the car. What are you doing? I mean, you're committing aggravated assault is what you're doing.
You're committing aggravated assault. So even in a place like Arizona that has a very strong defensive display statute, and whether your state does or not, and many states do, hear what Tim said here. I want to circle back to that. 6 of the 7 that, like, I know this statute and what I can do, end up getting charged with serious stuff. The one who didn't, who ignored it, that's the one that it was designed for.
That's
because
why
he
I was
needed
able to
use
bring it up and point out that what he had done was actually a defensive display, and the prosecutor agreed, and the charges were dropped.
And the charges were dismissed. So this is no different in those cases. How many times have we said, whether you have a stand your ground statute or not, ignore that.
Right.
If you can get away, get away.
Exactly.
Right? And if you ignore it and you can't, there's nothing you can do to get away, well, then you use the force you need to use in order to stop the threat, and then you'll be all right.
Right.
If you can get away, though, you're a fool to stand your ground when you can get away from
And
the
even
threat.
before that, let's take one more minute and just point this out. If I've asked the wrong guy's girlfriend to dance, and he's coming at me, and I'm thinking, oh boy, I better start thinking about my weapon. How about if before I do that, I say, oh my God, is that your girlfriend?
My God, I'm so sorry.
I am such a moron. I had no idea. She is gorgeous. You are the luckiest man in this whole place. Can I buy both of you guys a drink? I'm such a moron. That will stop 97% of all the incidents right there.
The my bad 20.
Done. And people don't do that anymore. Yeah. Nobody's willing to say that. Eat some crow, and if you can't keep the crow down, then run. those are going to be my first two choices if they're at all possible, and they're usually possible, right?
Well, and again, not that I'm the paragon of virtue, but I've told this story before on the channel of my 15-year-old at the time and I going out to get slushies because she was having a hard day. Guy ends up, peeling out next to us, and I put my arm next to her to keep her from doing that in the parking lot, and he looks out the side mirror, adult language coming, and he goes, "Fuck you," out his side view mirror. And the funny part is now my 20-year-old is actually editing this video, and she can actually validate that this really happened. And he leans out his side view, his passenger window, "Fuck you." And like he was gonna come after me, and I was fully tooled up, and so I was like, okay, well, if this guy gets out of the car with a crowbar, he's gonna get a gun pointed at him. If he gets out with a gun, he's gonna get shot. But I'm with my kiddo, and instead I looked at the guy and I was like, dude, totally, fuck me. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Fuck me.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Like, I hadn't done anything. So he peels off, and my kiddo looks at me and goes, "What was his problem?" "I don't know. Let's just move on with our day." It just kept me out of a fight, right?
Guys, I mean, I am fat. My wife is being a bitch. Can I please pay for your parking space? I mean, eat a little bit of crow, and you're going to have a nice dinner when you get home. I mean, it's no big deal. You're wrong. They're right. Just start from that point, and you're going to be all right.
Remember, the drinks you buy may be a lot cheaper than the attorney.
Oh boy, lots cheaper.
So avoid that defensive, the brandishing charges. Avoid the escalation of the conflict if you can. Tim, I really appreciate
also,
that.
don't teach your kids to get in fistfights, probably for betting money, right? So
So again, teach your children, hey, we're having problems. Let's sit down like adults and use words.
Be reasonable. Have dog fights or cock fights. You don't have your kids fight like that. Come on, no bum fights.
Don't do those things. It's bad.